First race of day 3, and it's probably going to be the first argument that Jamie and I have on air for, well, only for a couple of weeks. We were off at Christmas, weren't we? It's the Turners Novices Chase. We've got, I mean, without any ways like of worrying about him going left-handed or jumping or getting beaten a boodles off of a low mark that really hurts a lot of people. Got to get over it. We've got a potential absolute aeroplane in Gaelic Warrior going in a Turners. You think of the years back when you have a Valtor destroying fields in there, even when Yorkhill won his JLT, they are proper monsters. So let's just trust that Gaelic Warrior will be okay going left-handed. We've got a potential monster in Gaelic Warrior, right? He's about a 7-4 poke on the machine. He's 11-8 with the bookmakers. There's significant gap between that and the exchanges. That reason, right? There are plenty of people that are quite happy to take him on, I think, because of his flaws, but what he's done so far this season is nothing beyond what we probably expected, but he is real good. He does jump a little bit right. The market behind it is understandably quite cloudy, right? The second favourite in is Faso Vega. We don't even know if he's definitely going to come here or not. And if he does come here, it's a second choice. He hasn't started out the season with this as the plan, whereas I believe, much as Willie said he was going to go for the Brown Advisory at the start of the season, this would have been the plan early season. I'd have fought for a Gaelic Warrior. Got Founder 50 in there as well, who he won over 2 miles the last day. Why would he be stepping up in trip off the back of that? Why would he want to go and take on a Gaelic Warrior? Got Corbett's Cross, who we've talked about a little bit already, being probably a little bit of a dickhead of a horse. Factor Far, we've talked about him being a Brown Advisory winner. Ile Francais is staying in Francais. We've talked about Blood Destiny going to an Arkle. We drop ourselves all the way down to Hermes Allen as the first horse in my eyes that genuinely, if you were talking at the beginning of a season, what race they would be targeted towards, this is where Hermes Allen would be coming. Mr. Policing's in behind him in the bet, and he's going to go Arkle, you would suspect, or probably. Not very good anyway, he's too small a horse. Hercule de Sul, Paul's already talked about him as a potential outside bet for an Arkle. We're starting to get so far down the market. Nick Rocket's in there. He's a National One Chase horse. We're getting so far down. These horses just aren't going to run in here, right? So I'll state my case for Hermes Allen. I will pass the mantle to Jamie, and I won't even argue back. Hermes Allen, right? That Ballymore last year, for all that he didn't run that well, I don't believe that was his true running. Harry Cobden was sulking when he came in, moaning about the tactics early. He was like, well, that's what happens if you have so many horses in there, or all that sort of stuff. And it was a bit toys out the pram, right? I thought in the race, just kick on, and he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to ruin his horse by going too fast, but he ruined his horse by going too fast with them. He was travelling with Gaelic until the last hurdle, and yes, he faltered after that, but they tinkered with his wind. He wasn't very good at Aintree either compared to what he'd done early in the season. But his John Fancombe Chase win, the beginning of the season, was very good. And if you took Ile Francais out of that Feltham, he would have been a wide margin winner of the Kauto Star Novices Chase on good ground, which wouldn't be screaming out he needs to go for a Brown Advisory, especially when they've got Stay Away Fay in there. So I think he's being like almost rudely disrespected in the fact that he was sent off favourite for that Ballymore last year. All the talk about Impere Pass, the amount of money that was behind Hermes Allen on the exchanges to keep him as favourite isn't there for no reason, right? They know this horse is pretty good. So they did talk about probably going to Aintree with him. I was worried with the fact when it got to Christmas, I was mentioning to Jamie that he's going to go in the Kauto Star, and that worried me because you can see on my exchange thing here, I've got a loss on the race regardless, right? I backed him after his John Francombe. I thought he would definitely come here, thought he would shorten up, and I thought I'd be able to get a bit of a free money on him. As soon as they went Kauto Star Novices Chase and I was getting vibes that he wasn't going to come here, I just wanted to cut my losses. So I had 150 quid at risk. I've lost 50 quid regardless of whatever the result is now anyway. However, I've come back around to the fact, right, William Hill, a non-runner money back. I've gone through the list of runners that are going to come in here. This is going to be a very small field. We had the Galloping de Champ, Bob Ollinger, Bustleton, and whatever the other one was, 4-runner race. Hermes Allen may get saved for Aintree because Paul Nicholls wants to be an absolute pussy and try and go for a soft grade 1 at Aintree. But he had the favourite for the Ballymore. He knows how good this horse is. He will be forced to run him in this race, knowing that Gaelic Warrior jumping right-handed over fences is going to be worse than jumping right-handed over hurdles. He could be beatable. So I think the 14-1 non-runner money back about Hermes Allen for 3 places is scandalous. And I'm saying that off the fact that I backed him at 12s or 14s, even just in the anti-post market after that John Francombe run. So for me, there is nothing that anybody could possibly tell me that there is any other bet to have in this market other than Hermes Allen. But I am open to suggestions from other people because I've had the bet. I've had 50 each way, so I'm not exactly going too ballsy on it. I think that's the way in. But I am sort of sentimentally attached to Hermes Allen. I think I know better than a lot of people, and I clearly do not know better than Paul Nicholls. So, Jamie, I won't even argue back or say anything back. I think Hermes has got a bit of a chance in it. What way would you look at this now? Because we're thinking Gaelic's going to come here. Would you be wanting to bet Gaelic? Would you be looking for anybody else to take him on? Do you think it's going to cut up? Is there any way to have an in, or am I just desperate to have a bet and I'm being a dick?
You're just trying to steal a couple of 3-4 to 1 and each way bet on Hermes Allen because the price is 16 to 1. That's all you're doing. You're just each way teaming. And to be honest with you, but no, yeah, well, look, I wouldn't put you off there because this race is going to be like 5-6 runner race. If even that, you know what I mean? Because he's going to get rid of a lot of horses, Gaelic Warrior, and even though he jumps that way in Totem, like it doesn't matter. He's just better than all these, isn't he? He's just a very, very, very good horse, and it's just a pity Cheltenham wasn't right-handed because he'd probably be about the same price as Constitution Hill. But fact to fight, obviously, I mentioned in the Browns thing is worrying me that he runs here. If he runs here, it's a huge price at the moment. I bet her. I might back it for cover because if Gaelic Warrior decides to go walkabout up the straight, now there is a theory I have. If someone's close to him, right, like last year, as I said to you, I had loads of anti-post bets on Mighty Potter. And on the day, I turned to my dad and a couple of friends of ours that we watched that every year together, and I said, I don't know, I'm going to have that saver on stage start. I was thinking about my hit. It wasn't enough, obviously, to cover everything I had on Mighty Potter. But I was thinking afterwards, in hindsight, obviously, the huge thing. When Mighty Potter won at the DRF, there's a rail comes all the way up the straight up at the stand. There ain't a rail up the straight in the stand in the new course in the Turners. And that's what happened to Mighty Potter. He had nothing to run up against the rail. And he drifted all the way over to the stand rail. And that's what is worrying me big time about Gaelic Warrior, is that he'll jump that way, and if he starts going right and keeps going right, it could be a problem, but would he be so far clear anyway? That's the other side of it. But I'd be really worried about no rail close enough to him up the straight, if that makes sense. Yeah. That's what I'm really. The only worry I have is like when Mike White went off out there that time. Then the rail came in because of the old course, but the new course doesn't have it because you go all the way over to the old course. I think it's something they should look into because before they used to have the rail all the way up. But I suppose it's for a reason. The dog agrees with me. But yeah, I'm struggling after that day, to be honest with you. Better fact to fight in Gaelic Warrior. I just mentioned there, obviously, that I think Corpus Crush should be in here too. I think he's a 2.5 miler. Maybe he'll pick up the pieces, but it's Gaelic Warrior all day for me. You know?
Would you be tempted to put him in a few multis given the fact that he is a shorty, or do you think that probably the 11 to 8 about him is short enough given the risks?
I agree with you, Dave. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, why are you putting him in up when he's 11 to 8?" And you won't put him in Mogi doubles. Everyone is going to put him in Mogi Akas for Cheltenham. So I don't mind. And people are talking.
He's a bad price, isn't he? He's got to be a bad price, regardless of what you think.
I understand what you're saying, but like everyone's going to put him in stupid bets. Like, and to say they're not, they're lying to you. Do you know what I mean? No matter how good
you'd happily have a few quid roll on him because he is technically the best horse race. Like you say, this was punched on, it was right-handed. This wouldn't even be a contest. It'd be a 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 vote.
No, I totally agree.
But it isn't, is it? It is Cheltenham. There are reasons he could get beat.
It's just a nagging doubt I have about the point I touched on. The problem is, obviously he's better than Stage Star, in not long until May and whatever. Mighty Potter, if he was running last year in the Turners. But it's the nagging doubt. But the only thing is, will he be so far clear? And he probably will be. Do you know what I mean? So, even if he jumps right and they're not Crimin jockeys, but if he was 5 to 4 and Ruby Watch was on him, I think that would be one of the greatest bets of all time. Paul Townend worries me in certain races, and do you know what I mean? He just does. And that's about it, really. I think we've talked too much about it.
Nice. Well, Paul, we'll get on to you then. So I guess that the key part of it is you don't have to mention anything about the Hermes stuff unless you want to, but Gaelic Warrior from a sensible head perspective, right? There will always be the opinion that everyone just wants to be right. So whatever price he is, people will want to say, well, I think Gaelic Warrior is an absolute certainty for when he goes and shits home. Do you think that like their Bet365 are a standout 11-8, right? It's very important to say that he's 5-4 generally, but he is 7-4 on the machine, right? That's not me just like hinting to say that obviously the machine knows better than the bookies, but we talk about putting these horses into multiples and all that type of stuff. Do you, like, is he one of those that you feels like safe at the price that he is? Do you think the 11-8 represents enough like risk reward compared to the fact that he has jumped right-handed while going right-handed? We haven't seen him left yet. There's an awful lot of faith being put in a horse being able to do it because he's got to go and do it to be able to go and beat whatever goes in there, regardless of how weak the field is. Do you think he's a good thing as everyone else does?
Well, he's seriously short for a horse that's been turned over at the last 2 festivals, isn't he?
And as a second season novice last year as well, I've got to add.
Yeah, and as a second season novice. But I think this is different.
Yeah.
You know, he was beaten twice. Look, we all know he jumps right-handed, and we all know that's not ideal at Cheltenham. But it's particularly not ideal on the old course, as we talked about in the previous one of these, when they're constantly on the turn and jumping on the turn. He's giving up ground all the time. On the new course, you know, it's a much more galloping course. You know, he's got a big long straight. I get the concern that Jamie mentioned about, you know, does he jump right and keep drifting right? Well, it's just a big long straight, so it doesn't need to happen. You know, if you think about the example we used with Might Bite, you know, that was in the RSA. Well, it might have been the Browns at the time, but I think it was still the RSA then. Again, on that sharp, you know, old course. So I think the new course will help him massively. And I think also he's becoming quite a straightforward ride over fences. You know, just take him out and let him jump. You know, there's no point in sitting behind horses and, you know, taking away your advantage, is there? You know, the horse jumps for fun. So you just take the race on. You know, much like Stage Star did last year, much like Frodon has in the past. That's what you've got to do with him. Just take the race on, because you, with the greatest respect, looking at the field behind him, there's nothing anywhere near as good, is there? You know, so you know, just keep it simple. You know, he'll stay the trip. He jumps for fun. You know, just have them all at it. You know, they'll all be scrubbing away down the hill, trying to keep tabs. They'll all be under pressure. They'll all be making mistakes. The novices, you know, because jockeys are now starting to throw the horses at fences. I actually think he just wins this really easily, actually, and I think just forget the right-handed thing. I don't think it's such a big issue. I think this will be his easiest race to date, ironically. Bear in mind he ran in the Boodles. I shouldn't really be saying that, but you know. I actually think this will be his easiest race at the festival so far. You look at the opposition. Well, Facile Vega could come here. Factor File could come here. I'm pretty sure Factor File won't. I don't see why Willie would clash the two horses. That just wouldn't make any sense at all. Yeah, I can see why he would send Facile Vega. I think they'll give Facile Vega another chance to over 2 miles. Before they make that decision, you know, given that wasn't his running, but you know, I can see why he will end up here. But Gaelic Warrior will beat him. You know, I think he's just a bit better horse, better chaser. He'll get beaten. Hermes Allen, I kind of agree. I think he probably should come here in the context of this race, but after getting beat up by Ile Francais, you can see why they wouldn't want to necessarily get beaten up by Gaelic Warrior. Why not have a fresh horse and go to Aintree? The fourth co-owner, John Diver, actually, his son is involved in my latest horse. So I'll try and find out from John what the intention is, but I don't know as we're speaking, so I can't answer that question. I thought one that might be interesting at a bigger price, again, you know, just because the makeup of this race, these races are really worth looking at for each way opportunities. There are 2 actually that struck my mind. One isn't quoted yet. I'll come back to that in a second. But the first one was Ginny's Destiny. One of the November, you know, and we know typically, you know, the 2.5 mile course at Cheltenham is very much a horses for courses race. You know, all of these races are real horses for courses. And I thought Ginny's Destiny ran a really big race that day, albeit it was flattered because of the mistake that Grey Dawning made. But I think Grey Dawning, as I mentioned in the previous video, I think is a contender for the Brown Advisory anyway. So, you know, I don't see a reason why I wouldn't be interested in Ginny's Destiny for this, having already run really well over course and distance. So I think he's 33 to 1. He might
and 16's non-runner, no bet Ginny's Destiny is. But let's be like brutally honest. There's no way Nichols is running 2 in here. But it could be one or the other. And the non-runner money back means you don't have to worry about running both, do you?
Yeah. Well, I think the likelihood is that, as I say, Hermes Allen will go to Aintree. And I think he'll run Ginny's Destiny. I think that's what will happen.
He'll go and get beat at Aintree, though, won't he? But it's just one of them, innit? Like it's a hard race. Like Gaelic is the most likely winner.
Hermes Allen goes to Aintree. What's beating him at Aintree?
Himself.
You know what I mean? Well, himself maybe. We haven't talked.
I know the straightforwardness of Gaelic. That is very true, right? But how animated and pissed off Patrick got with Danny going up the inside of him. You know, when you get these right-handed horses where you think, oh, tuck him up against the rail and like get him behind horses so that they can't jump across. How fuming Patrick was with the possibility that a horse could be on his right-hand side just screams alarm bells to me that at Cheltenham, if you put a horse on his outside, Patrick can't tell other jockeys to fuck off. If I was Harry Cobden, and Harry Cobden's a very smart jockey, like with Stage Star, bowls out in front. If I was Harry Cobden, I'd just put Hermes Allen right next to Gaelic Warrior and say, go on, then.
Well, I think the simple thing is... You know,
my fantasy,
well, Patrick won't be riding. No disrespect to Patrick. He won't be riding. Paul Townend will. And no horse will get a chance to get up his inside, is what I would say.
Yeah, he'll be gone.
The other horse that is actually quite interesting to me, and this is not based on a conversation. I need to make this completely clear. I haven't had this conversation yet, but I will. It's Protectorat. Now, he probably will go to the Gold Cup. I haven't spoken to Dan about it, but I don't think he quite sees it out around Cheltenham. It could be that they just decide he's an Aintree bold horse, for example. But I'd run him in the... I'd run him... Oh, what am I talking about, Protector? I've got completely...
In the Ryanair. No, it's fine. It's fine. We can start the Ryanair preview early. It's fine. On that bombshell. We've talked...
Let's do the Ryanair.
Yeah, well, we've talked way too much about the race. The one wild card I will mention, because you guys would have seen it on the screen, but this will be the last moments on it, is How Could a Tabber, the mare. Probably does need a bold. Gordon Elliott's run a mare in this before, Shattered Love, but there was no mare's chase available at the time. I've had a few quid on her purely for the fact that I just think she's an absurd price. If she ran in this race, which she probably won't, but if she did, given the fact we're saying the race would cut up, she would be possibly single figures in the race. So I've had a small swing on that, but again, you probably just get the vibe right. I had a good bet on him in the Turners. I mean, the Boodles. I'm not trying to get Gaelic beat. I'm just, the value part of my head feels like, especially the non-runner money back on Hermes, is worth taking a swing, hold 100 quid against it. If he doesn't run, he goes at Aintree, then, well, it doesn't really matter. But we will move on. We will move on.
Just before you do, there is a horse that I didn't mention. I managed to mix my notes up when I was looking.
Okay.
The horse that I meant to mention was Founder 50, who obviously ran well over 2 miles at Christmas. I think he's a 2.5 mile horse, and I think he's a much improved horse for fences. And in the context of this race, he's probably the one that I'd be looking at as maybe the runner-up, I suppose.
Yeah, 8 to 1 he is. So for the odds for first three is not a bad way to do it. The Hermes bet, I will just like touch on the fact of it. It will pay 3.8. So it will pay, because it's 2 points that it would be on there. It pays about 10 to 11 for the Hermes Allen just to place. And I'm looking at that from the context of, if Hermes Allen runs in this race, there's no way I don't think he finishes second or third to Gaelic Warrior. And the fact that Gaelic Warrior is about the same sort of price to win the race, and who knows what's going to happen in racing, that's why I've sort of gone with the Hermes thing. And I got a soft spot for him. Right, we've spent far too much saying the word Hermes Allen, so I'm going to stop.